I don't work for a university, I don't work for industry, so I'm independent. Independent geologist, is that better? It's hard for me to talk terribly loud, but just tell me if you can't hear me. I wanted to talk today about watersheds, and each one of us lives in a watershed. The watershed is basically, if you look around at the higher areas, it's all of that water that is shedding down to a point in a stream. So we all live in these watersheds. You can see in the diagram that you might have, this would be a drainage divide, so that in this case all of the water is shed down to this point in the stream. This would be a sub-watershed, so that you can delineate watersheds at different levels within the stream. One important thing that usually doesn't get out is how important or how finite our water resources are. In the ocean, we have the water cycle where water will evaporate, condense, and rain. And those lands right back down into the ocean. On land, we have the same cycle, the same water cycle: evaporation, condensation, precipitation. There is a slight exchange that's in a delicate balance at the moment. You can think of this in terms, it's not percentage, but you can think of it as being 11% going from the ocean areas onto our continental areas, and minus 11 is what that's supposed to be, going from runoff from the land back into the ocean. When we have more and more runoff, and this is what I'll be discussing, when we are taking away our ridgetop forests, then we're going to have increased runoff, and the runoff will be greater going into the ocean than the amount of water we have coming onto land. And we will lose that water forever. And this is an important point that I try to make in each one of these talks. It turns out the Environmental Protection Agency has the Center for Watershed Development as its research arm, and they have learned that 10% of an impervious area, where nothing's terribly impervious, 100% impervious, but they would consider, say, a concrete pad or a rooftop as being impervious. They consider 10% of an impervious area within a watershed will cause damage to that watershed. We don't normally have just a 10% impervious area. What we do have is the runoff of areas that would be, say, clay and loam, and that would add up to the same amount of stormwater runoff that you can have from a 10% impervious area. And this is the thing we need to concentrate on to try to control the kind of development that you have in each watershed. At our ridgetops, we have forested ridgetops. The mountain forests intercept the rainfall. So as it intercepts the rainfall, that water will fall gently to the Earth's surface, and a lot of that will then be able to recharge our groundwater. Other of that water will serve as surface runoff during the storm. So that's the surface runoff that we have. When they're doing computations to determine what's the best situation for a watershed, you want a totally forested watershed. This is a concept of the river continuum. I did not come up with this. It was actually in the U.S. Department of Agriculture handbook that was out several years ago, which shows that the continuum starts at our mountain ridges. So we have certain organisms in the aquatic environment, in our headwaters, that are important at the very base of the food chain, where it starts in our headwater areas. So if you were, I know you can't see all of the aquatic species in these pie diagrams, but in the beginning we have mostly shredders. The shredders are actually bugs, or larvae of bugs, and they break down organic compounds, which can then be used by other aquatic organisms downstream. So as you go downstream, you see that the shredders gradually decrease and the other types of aquatic species increase. So these organisms are very important, and they have a specific need in their environment. The trees will allow there to be a low amount of light available, so that these organisms need to have a cooler environment and they need to have a shaded environment. When we have destruction of our forest ridges, then our headwaters go. I spoke of recharge of our groundwater. Now, in most of the area where the gas line is going through, we have shale and sandstone, siltstone. And the way we get groundwater is that the water